Hey geometry students, this is the beginning of unit 2. This is a pretty short unit. It only has 4 skills in it. However, some of the lessons are a little bit on the longer side. This one is a touch long, but hopefully not too bad. So we're going to be talking about parallel lines in this unit. And our first lesson is where we start to discover what happens when we have parallel lines and then something called a transversal. So there's going to be a whole bunch of new vocabulary in this lesson, and then we're going to get to use it a little more as we go forward. So like always, it's very important to write down everything that I write down. This one is going to be pretty hefty. There's going to be a lot of diagrams and a lot of writing, but it's going to be really helpful as you go forward in the unit. So we're going to start with this diagram here. What we have two lines called line M and line N, and they are parallel to each other. So what you're going to do in your notes and what you're going to do for the rest of this year, if you want to mark something as parallel, you're going to add some arrows to your line, some extra arrows. So that is going to tell everyone that these two lines are parallel lines. And I think you know what parallel lines are. They're two lines that are going in the exact same direction. They're never going to touch each other. And then this line T is called a transversal. And what a transversal does is it kind of cuts through other lines. All right, and what happens when you have parallel lines and transversals is you end up with a whole bunch of different angle pairs, and that's what we're going to spend some time discovering in a moment here. So our first special set of angles are our alternate interior angles. What the heck does that mean? Okay, well, alternate means like alternating or opposite sides of the transversal. And interior, I think we know what interior means. Interior means on the inside, but it means on the inside of the parallel lines. So the easiest way to show this, and you guys can do the same in your notebooks if you think it's helpful, is to grab a highlighter and start by highlighting the inside of the parallel lines. So we want to be inside the two red lines that are marked as parallel. Okay, so that kind of narrows it down. Now we're looking at angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but anytime a transversal cuts through parallel lines, you have 8 angles, 8 different angles in the diagram. And we're going to keep them numbered as 1 through 8 for now. Okay, so inside the parallel lines, and then we want to be on opposite sides of that transversal. So here's that transversal, right? So if we're going to pick like angle 4, we would want to hop to the opposite side of the diagram. So we would want to hop over here to angle 5. So angles 4 and angles 5 are considered alternate interior angles. Now, I had someone tell me one time when you're looking at these, and if you're kind of not sure, alternate interior angles are like the insides of the letter Z. So I'm going to also add that. Maybe that will help you. Look for the letter Z. And it's kind of like in the corners of the Z. Okay. There is another set though. If we chose angle 3, we could choose angle 6 to go with it. Angle 3 and angle 6 are also a pair of alternate interior angles. And you'll get a lot better at these as we use them. I know this will kind of seem like a lot to begin with, but you'll get really good at seeing them. Okay, so that would also make a Z. It would look kind of weird, but you can kind of picture it. There's a Z I just did in black, and it would be like these guys right here. Okay, alternate interior angles, they are congruent. So angle 3 and angle 6 are congruent. If one of them was 110 degrees, the other one would also be 110 degrees. Same with angles 4 and 5. So that's something that's very important to remember, is that if you're working with parallel lines and transversals, alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay, the next one, I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. Pause if you need to. Alternate exterior angles. Okay, so once again, opposite sides of the transversal, but this time exterior means outside. If you are painting the exterior of your house, you are outdoors. You're not painting on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to highlight outside the parallel lines. So not in between the lines, but outside the lines. And then we're going to be looking for opposite sides of that transversal. So angle 1 and angle 7 would be a pair. And then the other pair would be angle 2 and angle 8. And just like with the alternate interior angles, these guys are going to be congruent to one another. And you can kind of see this from the diagram. Angle 2 and angle 8, they appear to both be acute angles. They appear to be the same, and they actually are the same. So add that to your notes, that your alternate interiors, your alternate exteriors, they are congruent within their pair. Okay, moving on to consecutive interior. So interior again means the inside, but consecutive means on the same side of the transversal. So I'm going to go back to that highlighter. I'm going to find the interior inside the parallel lines, and then the same side of the transversal. So if I'm picking the top, I would want to pick the top once again. So up above the blue line, we would have 4. Up above the blue line again would be angle 6. So angle 4 and angle 6 would be considered consecutive interior angles. Angles 3 and 5 would be the other pair. And then I like to remember this one as the letter C. So it's kind of an upside down C, but you can see it there. If you can draw the letter C, we're going to end up with those two angles there. Now, I gave them different arc marks. I gave angle 4 1 arc mark and angle 6 2 arc marks. And that's because consecutive interior angles are not congruent, but they are something. They are actually supplementary. They add to 180 degrees. All right, and then we also have our consecutive exteriors. And again, I'm going to go a little faster here. I'm going to start by highlighting outside those parallel lines. And then consecutive, again, means same side. So both on top or both on bottom. So angle 1 and angle 8. Or angle 2 and angle 7. Okay, and they are also supplementary. And then we just have one more set here. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are my favorite. Corresponding angles are like angles that have the same position. And I like to remember this by using the letter F. So we have our Z and our C and our F. Corresponding angles are your F. So I'm just going to draw an F like this. See how that's like the letter F? And corresponding angles would be angles that have the same position on that F. So like angle 2 and angle 5. See how they're both like the armpits of the F? They would be corresponding, okay? We could also do angle 3 and angle 7. They're in the same position. They're both kind of above the, I don't know, this part of the F. So angle 3 and angle 7. Okay, we can keep going. We could make an F going the other direction. We could make an F going this way. So we could find the armpits. The armpits of the F would be 1 and 6. Or we could do the tops again. 4 and 8. All right, and those guys are once again congruent. The acute ones are going to be equal to each other. The obtuse ones are going to be equal to each other. So each pair is congruent. The angles within the pair are congruent. All right, we're just going to do a couple quick examples here. Example 1, take a second to draw the diagram. We have some parallel lines. Obviously, these guys right here, they used 2 little arrows to note that, and that's totally fine. Those guys are parallel. And then we have these 2 angles here on the inside. So I know they're interior because they're inside the parallel lines. Now the question is, are they on the same side of the transversal or are they on opposite sides? And they're on the same side. So that means they are consecutive. Consecutive interior angles. And what do we know about consecutive interior angles? We know that they add to 180. They're supplementary. And you can tell just by looking at them, they're definitely not congruent. This guy up here is definitely a small angle, an acute angle. And this one down here is an obtuse angle, a big angle. So they're not the same, but we can set up a little equation that says that x plus 34 plus an additional 130 is equal to 180. And then we can just solve that from there, combine some like terms, and subtract. And we're going to end up with, let's see, 16. X would be 16. And we could always take that and substitute it back in. 16 plus 34 is going to give us, what, 50 degrees? And then we can double check that. 50 degrees plus 130 degrees is definitely 180 degrees. So we're good to go on that one. And then just one final example. This time we need to solve for x and y. So I am going to start right away by noticing that I have the letter F, and I kind of have like the armpits of it. It's an upside down F, and we have those insides. So those are called, remember what those are called? Those are called corresponding. And corresponding angles are congruent. I'm going to use the congruent sign there. Okay, so now our equation is really simple. X plus 5 is equal to 35. X is equal to 30. Okay, so we could substitute that back in and check, and it's going to be 35 degrees. Okay, now for y, how do we figure out what y is? Well, to figure out what y is, we have to go back to last unit where we had these things called linear pairs. So 35 degrees and that angle y clearly make a line. We have 2 angles that look like they add up to make a line. So we need to figure out what's missing. So basically, what is 180 minus 35? I think that's the easiest way to do it. And we're going to get 145 degrees. So y equals 145 degrees. All right, I know that was a bit of a long one. So what you want to do is keep these notes handy. Keep handy. You can refer back to these notes for quite a while up until the test to keep practicing those angle pairs.